Just a quick side note. Can we get some Eastern Shore ARAC lunch boxes? Because VC's got some really cool.
No,
I don't have one.
We are broke.
Okay. Yeah, we just started our fiscal year.
Okay, let me tell you one thing, because I tell that to everyone that starts at the station. There was a time when the station could not even afford toilet paper.
I know.
Wow.
Accomack County.
So
what
when
happened?
y'all
What
young whippersnappers come in and you're
welcome.
like, I want to change everything and buy everything, there you go.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, we couldn't buy toilet paper.
So what did you do?
Apparently, Lauren got some from Accomack VC.
Accomack County. Thank you, Accomack County.
Made a donation. Made a donation. You know, because we're all cousins around here and stuff. Gosh, that's funny.
Let's go!
Welcome to CabCast, your trusted companion for exploring the cutting edge of agriculture, from the field to the lab and everywhere in between. Brought to you by Virginia Cooperative Extension and the Eastern Shore Agricultural Research and Extension Center, this podcast is rooted in science, innovation, and community. Whether you're a seasoned farmer, an aspiring agriculturalist, or simply curious about the forces shaping our food systems, CabCast is your go-to source for timely insights, expert advice, and practical knowledge, all conveniently delivered on the go. Join us as we dig into the latest trends, groundbreaking research, and real-world applications that are transforming agriculture on the Eastern Shore and beyond.
Welcome to CabCast. I'm Teresa Pittman, your Accomack County Extension Agent.
And I'm Helen Dowdy, Northampton County Extension Agent.
Kemper Sutton, entomologist.
Doug Higgins, plant pathologist.
Mark Ryder, Soils and Nutrient Management Specialist.
Very
I have
good.
to say, I like how we got closer today.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
physically closer.
Right. Like
Yeah.
it feels more convivial.
Oh, yes.
My cord is not long enough.
I know. I tried to tell him
does
to
feel a little stretched over there.
Mark's like, I don't know about this.
Like I'm ready to get in the discussion this time.
You read? Oh, just go for it, Helen. Let's do this.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's been a little difficult here lately. I was riding around down Northampton County, and you guys had some rain, but it looks very dire down the road.
Yeah.
We are probably, I don't know, it's still not showing as drought on drought.gov, but it certainly should. We are probably at between 0 and 50% of the normal conditions in terms of percentage of rain.
Yeah.
And the soil moisture at 1 meter of soil, and this is remotely sensed, but that's what's showing on drought.gov, is showing a soil moisture anomaly of minus 40 to minus 60% for Northampton County. And we're just this is only in this county for the whole entire part of Virginia.
I would say, where do you think the line is? I think it's just below Exmoor. Like
Yes.
if you're riding, right? Like if you're riding around and
Hair
looking
loft.
at it.
That's
the
what-
hair loft, I
That-
was told, was the natural line for weather.
That's
Oh,
right on that's county line. That's right on the county line.
That is very true. The hair loft, I cannot.
Well, our soybean variety trial is in Exmoor, and there was standing water in that field. But anything
South.
I would say south of Nassawadox is looking, and unfortunately, we have full season soybeans that are at R1 and flowering, and I've seen aborted flowers already. We're concerned about pollination issues with the corn. I mean, it's starting to senesce right now, but when we had that really hot time, I think some other crops such as tomatoes have
And the snap beans,
because
too.
of the heat. Yeah.
We're working on a case up the road where
Yes.
we have some snap beans that appear to flower during our intense heat.
yes.
So even if you have a
Poorly
vegetable
developed,
crop
yeah.
that's normally irrigated, you're still having issue because the intense heat aborts the blossoms.
Exactly.
And the
That
flowers.
heat really shut it down. What was it, like 2 weeks or like a week and a half in there that we had, and it was just horrible. Not that it's not right now, because I think it's pretty horrible outside.
It's going to
right
break
now.
today.
It is.
They claim the dome's going away today.
I hope so,
Yeah.
because I was watching national news and they were talking about the dome, but but that like 2 week period kind of really started the downhill slide. And I know that we got some larger rain events in Accomack that helped. But just like you said, in a heat situation, we've been talking about rain this whole time, but in the heat situation, that plant is going to shut down. That plant is not doing anything. It's not taking anything in. It's not performing any of its natural processes. It just completely shuts down. And we've really seen it physically show itself in the plants down the road from Nassawatic south.
And the double crop soybeans, I mean, they look very sad, but if we do get some appropriate rain, I guess it's still not too late, possibly, for them to get some good growth.
I'm having a little deja vu because I feel it was like 3 weeks ago where we were just talking about we need some heat units around here, and now look at us.
Maybe the podcast works that well.
Oh my gosh. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it?
And the other thing that, speaking with our potato growers and so on, so they've struggled with the heat as well when they were killing the vines for skin set. And at harvest, there's just been a lot of rot issues, and we've talked about it. Doug has been visiting some of the farmers.
Yeah, and it's been a mix. We saw a case where it was a pink rot case in which we had, water's really driving the system, and we have to think during irrigation that we're probably providing the adequate water that's needed for the disease to move. So then we move into temperature range. As the temperature gets hotter, certain diseases pop up. So we kind of would move away, a little bit away from pink rot into the bacteria soft rot cases that we've been seeing, that I've seen each year since I've been here. There's 2 species that drive bacteria soft rot. And one of them is really favored by warm weather. So it's like optimal conditions. If we can get some wetness in there and some warm weather, we get outbreak of bacteria.
Yeah, that's the exact situation I think that's happening up the road in Accomack. We got plenty of rain events. I had one farmer report he had like 9 inches within 2 weeks, and it was almost every other day. It kind of just like dumped. Wow. And usually, and I can remember, watching the weather and as it comes across the bay, breaking up. But in this case, there's been like a couple spots. Yesterday that's what happened last night. I was watching the radar and it was totally breaking up. Yeah. It was breaking up down the road with you, but then it came across an Exmoor and it thundered and lightning really bad. And then, but I was hoping for a little more rain. It didn't happen. So there's that. But in any case, it's like little pockets. But the bay really does kind of insulate us a little bit. And in this case, it insulated Northampton County really well because y'all are in a situation now. Yes, we are. And so we're, if you have any documentation or any pictures or any testimonials of how this is affecting you, please contact me by email, by text, phone, so we can start potentially working towards disaster
and also
declaration.
reach out if you have rot in your potatoes. Not all rot is created equally, we'll say. So, get us a sample and we can investigate case by case. Yeah. Because it's not everyone's experiencing the same thing, even though we might be experiencing some of the same conditions.
But all of these tidbits of information add up to what the FSA will require to petition for the USDA to declare a disaster declaration. We need those testimonials. We need what's going on. And while Helen and I can be out driving around looking, it's stories from the farmers. It's numbers. Like I had numbers. I had some rot, and about X% of my crop was injured. And we really think and with Doug's research, we know that type of rot likes humid, wet, and hot conditions. So it's all of these little things add up, and Helen will aggregate that data to put together into a report, and then we deliver it to the Farm Service Agency. And the Farm Service Agency kind of carries it up from there. But our job as boots on the ground is to collect those data points. So anything that you can give us, even if you don't think it matters, we might, with other people's data as well aggregated, it might come together for a report for declaration.
So are you guys still seeing potatoes that haven't been vine killed yet?
No.
Everything's vine
Yeah,
killed.
everything
Yeah.
is vine killed.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving, not letting them sit in the ground. I mean, getting them out as quick as possible
Yeah.
is going to be our one piece. So if you
Right.
vine kill the way back and they sat in the field,
So this is where
Yeah.
some farmers are hang tied. They wait on trucks. They'll get a call. I had one farmer who called up and said she did 30 loads in one day. Some days are like that, and some days are 1 or 2 trucks. So they've killed it in anticipation of the loads, but the loads might not come that day, or the trucks might be rerouted, or there's a weather event. And the 30 load day, it had rained everywhere but this area. And so that farmer could dig, no problem. The other farmers weren't able to because it was too wet. So, yeah,
I mean, yeah,
the
you have
vann killed, but sometimes they lose it just
Best
sitting
laid
there.
plans, but you know,
They're
yeah.
at the mercy of the buyer and how many trucks are sent a day. So
But as of today, I think in Northampton County we're
Finishing
done
now.
digging, or like finishing, if not done.
last couple
Yeah.
last couple acres.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Still have a little bit up the road. But we did fare better up the road weather-wise, so we'll see. But it should be finishing up completely in the next 2 weeks, all the people's. That's what I'm thinking.
What you got, Mark?
On a happier note, no,
Happier?
no. What do you want me to talk about? Yeah.
Anything.
Were you?
Root mass.
Soybeans. Oh, Helen's not going to do the lead in for that one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, would you? I mean, so I've been
so for
pulling some
those who can't
soybeans.
see, Helen is holding up a soybean plant now
Yes.
with a very poor looking root system.
Very poor.
It's at R1, and this is a plant that where we've been sampling tissue sample for the soybean variety trial, and so I just asked Mark what he thought of the root system, and so
It's sad. so one of the reasons Helen brought this plant sample in was the water was holding the field was holding water after the rain last night. We had about 2 tenths here at the station, so I'm not sure how much you had on this farm particularly, but it's pretty clear there's a soil compaction problem. The roots are only about 3 inches down,
Yeah.
and then the taproot makes a pretty stark right turn.
Yeah.
It pretty much just takes off growing right on top of that hard pan about 3 inches down, which is about the depth a lot of these implements we use on the Eastern Shore are that can do some minimum tillage.
Yeah.
They don't go very deep, but some hard pans can form right at that tillage depth. And so this soybean plant is suffering pretty bad from that. And so one of the unique things about soybean, it does have a taproot. It can grow deep if given the chance, but also if the soil is wet enough, it can often penetrate that hard pan. So what this is telling me is this was probably a dry field. We got that rain, just the water hadn't had time to infiltrate yet, and it had been pretty dry while that plant wasn't able to penetrate that hard root
Yeah.
zone. So, yeah.
No, I did collect it more on the edge of the field, so there may be not.
Oh, so we're like in a turn row.
Equipment turn.
Yeah,
Right,
there you go. Yeah.
Right. So
That would explain a lot of the compaction issue.
Yeah, but Helen mentioned is at R1, so it's at flowering, and so there's a couple of soybean things we need to think about this time of year when you're going through your fields. I know one thing people are starting to do right now might be considering, and I'll throw this to Kemper and Doug here both in a minute, insecticides and maybe fungicide treatments depending on need. I hope they'll both talk about that. But also when you're making some sort of intervention at R1 or R2 even, all the way back down to if you're still applying a herbicide, you can monitor for nutrients, especially micronutrients. One thing, right now it's prime time for manganese deficiency intervention if you see a manganese problem. And so manganese looks like it's in the top of the plant in new plant growth. It's we call it's intervadal chlorosis. So what that means is the vein is green and the leaf blade is yellow in between that. It kind of looks like a spider web, sort of like the veins are green, the veins are green and it's yellow in between. And so in the top of the plant, so manganese is a pretty common issue here on these sandy loamy sand soils. especially if your pH is above 6.8 or 7, which isn't very common here, but it does happen. And maybe even in strips, if you didn't get a good lime application and it's a little bit higher in the middle of the field or, right behind the lime truck. So just look for that, be cognizant of that. And one thing you can do is you can often put that in with your fungicide or your insecticide treatments. Because if we see a manganese problem, just go ahead and do it. You can do some foliar application, 3/4 a pound to a pound of manganese per acre, depending on formulation. But I do caution you to make sure you check your pesticide label for the insecticide or fungicide to make sure it's compatible.
Very good.
Yeah.
Or a herbicide if you're doing something a little bit earlier in the season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and oftentimes the label will call for a compatibility test in a small jar where you can put the two
Yes.
inputs together and see if you shake it up if they go together, if they
Correct.
form distinct layers.
Right.
Because sometimes the label kind of pushes it back to the user while trying to
Yeah, right.
get out of being held liable
Right.
for it. So we'll say a jar compatibility test, which is not a difficult thing to do, but just takes time to do it.
Yes.
And when you're running hard, you don't feel like you have time to do anything extra.
True.
and there's some different formulations out there. There's an EDTA chelated manganese that I think is typically pretty compatible with almost everything that I can see. But again, check your label. But do y'all see the same thing with fungicides and insecticides too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what should we be looking for? I know people are always wanting to think about what they should spray or scout anyway, right, Kemper?
Yeah, I mean, I think from an insect standpoint, we mentioned that at least the sample that Helen brought in, we're at flowering R1. So, now we're getting into the fruiting stage of the crop, and it's going to be pretty important to look out for those pests now. Typically, we're not going to see a lot of pest problems before then. You may see a few defoliators, but really when it comes to legumes, they're pretty hardy when it comes to defoliating pests. You almost never need to spray for defoliators except in rare situations. So, with these pods starting to fill out, one pest to really focus on is stink bugs. I know we kind of highlighted that in some previous episodes. And the critical stage growth stage for stink bugs is going to be that R3 to R6 growth stage, so like the beginning of pod fill to when those pods have filled out all the way to R6. And so, I think a lot of growers right now are hoping to make a lot of money this year in soybeans compared to a lot of our other commodities in terms of the price per bushel. I think we're a little over $10, between $10 and $11 per bushel for soybeans right now. So minimizing inputs is going to be critical just so we can, try to scratch out as much as we can. And so a really good option is going to be, a good pyrethroid spray for stink bugs. I think, last year we had a lot of, or at least several reports of folks being really concerned about stink bugs, and in some cases maybe even had some significant yield loss. And I think some of those growers historically never even sprayed for stink bugs. And so, and the reason, at least why I think we're starting to see some problems with them is we actually have a new player out here on the shores, the southern green stink bug. We really started to see that pest. I guess it's not really relatively new anymore, but at least when I was a graduate student here, it was in 2019. And that pest really starts to show up a little bit later. You'll see it kind of trickle along in the regular season, a few here and there, but those populations can really explode towards, that R4 to R6 range in the early part of the fall. And so
We'll probably see the flight like in August.
right, so
sometime.
it's going to coincide perfectly. And so if you're not out in your field looking for them, you can miss them and have a big problem. And so typically with folks who've been concerned, I've been recommending, at least one foliar spray of pyrethroids in a field with a history of stink bug problems. And if you're really concerned, you could do two. I wouldn't go crazy. Most of our species, including the southern green stink bug, will be killed by a pyrethroid, except for our native brown stink bug. That one is hit or miss with pyrethroids, so you may need to switch to something like acephate if you have that specific species. That being said, if you have any questions about which species you have, bring a sample to me and we can identify it and get a proper recommendation to that grower.
On a good note, looking at some of the soybean fields, I haven't brought out my sweep net yet, but I haven't seen, I don't see a big population of stink bugs so far, but things could change. And on the other hand, I've been catching some beet armyworm, and they do love, dry conditions, hot, dry conditions. So be
That's
on the
definitely
lookout
one.
for.
Yes, definitely one that's could become a problem. And it's not 100% confirmed, but last year, starting in South Georgia, they had some beet armyworm populations that were resistant to diamides. So those are going to be the products. I forget the row crop trade name, but like Coragen, any of those products, they've actually showed some resistance to those for at least for the first time in a lot of places, and so very concerning for us.
Our growers use a lot of Besiege.
Besiege, that's
because
right. There
it
we go.
takes
It's the
care
combo,
of
the combo product.
You know,
so
the worms and then the stink bugs as well. So
yeah, so if you're spraying Besiege and you have beet armyworms and they're not dying to them, that wouldn't be the first time I've heard that this year. David Owens up at the University of Delaware had a grower, a pepper farmer, who sprayed a diamide for beet armyworms, and none of them died. And it had never happened before. He ended up taking some back to the lab, testing them, and had a good proportion of them survived the chemical that we're exposed to. So if you do have beet armyworms, definitely.
And camper, I put it on the insect monitoring report. You're looking if anyone sees any beet armyworm in their field, you're interested in collecting
Yes.
some.
If you have beet
let you know.
armyworm, call me. I will come and collect them and test for that diamide resistance, because that's going to be really critical going forward if we start getting established populations that are coming up here that we can no longer spray a Besiege on anymore and need to switch to something else.
Yeah.
So we started spraying diamides here, testing them in 2006. So we had a good 20-year
A good run.
run, but hopefully it's not there yet.
Yeah, and I just want to mention one more thing about stink bugs. You know, a lot of the stink bugs I'm seeing right now are still on our field corn because the
Yeah.
ears are still green. They're feeding on that. But once that field corn starts to senesce, especially our early planted field corn,
Yes.
that's when we're going to see the jump to other commodities, specifically things like soybeans
Yes.
that are still green. So that's something I'd be looking out for too. So if you're going to put a spray out, I would wait as long as possible, probably, R5, R6.
Yeah.
And if you see a lot, go ahead and put an application out then.
Okay.
Very good.
What about disease, Doug? I know frog eye leaf spot.
Frog eye leaf spot.
It's a
Yeah.
question I've already been asked.
You have?
I have. Out across the bay. Yep.
I have to say I've run now 3 seasons frog eye trials at the station and using a highly susceptible cultivar, and I've yet to see levels of disease that would warrant a fungicide spray.
Really?
Yep.
Whoa,
And-
whoa, whoa. All right. Just
yeah, we can unpack it.
all right.
Yep.
Out of 3 years.
Yep.
Out of all your varieties that you think would be susceptible to a disease.
To
with
frog
little-
eye specifically, these are varieties
Okay.
that were chosen with my counterpart who works on frog eye more than I do. And they're not typical varieties that you would see growers. They're like the highly susceptible,
Yeah,
the
right.
ones that the pathologist want.
Yeah.
And I come from a specialty crop background, so still dipping my toe into the field crop side, but I'm just not seeing a level of disease that I'm getting excited about and seeing no impact on the yield. And so I really feel like the game with frog eye and soybean in our area is really, you need to be really justifying that you want to put this extra input cost into it. And
So-
that's got to be from a highly susceptible variety if you're going to consider it.
I'm trying to
Maybe
think-
some people will disagree with me, but most of my colleagues are kind of on the lines that you really have to justify a spray
Okay.
in soybean for fungicides at this time that we're
That's-
thinking for foliar sprays. And the adage should be, you really should be leaning in towards like you should be assuming you're not going to spray and then kind of working from there, like versus the other way around. And other diseases that we manage, and especially crops, we assume we need to stay ahead and stay protected there. This is my sense so far is not this case, and from what I read, I don't see and hear in our regions.
I
very
feel
low
like
frog
that
eye.
information is just as critical as a recommendation on what to spray. I
Yeah.
mean, because you've got some people who might recommend a spray, and this is coming from you who's seen it 3 years now.
I've seen
Lack
it 3
of
years,
or
and then
seen lack of it.
My counterpart at TARAG, David Linkson, he told me in his whole time doing it, he finally got a trial where he could actually see yield differences. And,
Yeah.
all those, and he's been doing it for a lot longer than I have. It's a little anecdotal because,
Yeah.
but it's also like, it's different for instance, like with late blight on tomato or potato. Like that's one we don't see every year, but when it comes, it hits
Yes.
hard.
Yes.
Right. So this is not even a scenario that when it comes, it's hitting that hard. Right. So I just
Kind of
I really question people, and I think fungicides are an excellent tool to have in your toolbox. I just don't, I would really
You have yet to see.
We really need
need.
to press ourselves for to justify the input costs.
Yeah.
But,
Look at yield impact, really.
yeah. I think yield's kind of hard for us to derive sometime from the small plot trial. So I always take, if I don't see yield differences, with a grain of salt.
Yeah, right.
But at least for the frog eye, I'm putting each year I put out a highly susceptible variety, and each year I'm not, seeing. Now, what we should do next week is have Ernesto come in and talk about soybean diseases, because Ernesto spent his entire PhD working on Cercospora on soybean.
Yeah.
And he should come. I think we should have him on
Let's do
next
it.
time, and we can expand this talk a little bit more detailed, and get some of his opinion on the Cercospora side. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Do
that's,
it.
That's a good idea.
All right, so you'll put it on his calendar?
Yeah. Yep.
Great.
I won't. It will actually be perfect because I won't be here next week because I'll be in APS meeting.
Oh, no blooper. Oh,
Darn.
We don't have any bloopers from this week, huh?
Doug's been on his best behavior.
Guys,
Oh my God, you're becoming way too serious.
So I see if she's gonna tag me on something.
If I could just throw one last insect piece in there, because
Yes.
we talked about it last week. Corn earworms have really taken off in the traps here at the station. Last week we caught over 138 in 1 week in one
Yes.
trap here on the station. Yeah, this week we're still running
That's,
the numbers, but we're close
weekly
to
total?
Weekly total
Yeah.
for over 7 days, and then we're still running the numbers this morning. But we have several that are close to, if not more than, triple digit as well. So if you're working with something that requires scouting for corn earworms, be paying very close attention to not only what I mentioned in this podcast, scouting your own traps, but look at Helen's insect monitoring report on the VC webpage, and as well as Teresa's webpage.
My number shot up this week too, so
Yeah,
Helen's been up there for a little bit,
well, and now it's declined.
and now it's
overall.
declining, but mine shot
Until
up.
the next wave, probably, when they start pupating, coming out of the corn.
Yeah, and I actually saw some fall armyworms this morning, larvae, for the first time in my sweet corn. They're wreaking havoc on it, so I'm spraying it tomorrow. But so we're starting getting a lot of moths flying
Yes.
around, beet armyworms, fall armyworms, corn earworms. So be on the lookout in your stuff.
Yeah.
All right. That's a wrap.
Sounds great.
For this week. Thank you for listening. And as always, reach out to us if you have any question or any topic that you wish us to discuss.
And don't
you.
forget to like and subscribe.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Like and subscribe.
Good job, Mark.
Good job, Mark. Excellent work.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to CabCast, your front row seat to the future of farming. Brought to you by Virginia Cooperative Extension and the Eastern Shore Agricultural Research and Extension Center. We're here to keep you informed, inspired, and connected to the land and the science that drives it. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more.